So moving on, if you're watching this live, by the way, type live in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're watching the replay, type replay as well. I'd love to hear from you. So as promised, today I wanted to talk about how fluoride works. I know a lot of you have questions about fluoride. Perhaps you are, a very common scenario is you as a mother know about the harms of fluoride and you decided not to use fluoride toothpaste. You're careful with your water, and then your child has tooth decay issues. So then you start going through the cycle where you're like, oh my God, maybe I should have stuck with the fluoride, right? And you correlate all your issues with the dental health issues that you're going with your son or your daughter to the fact that you stopped using fluoride toothpaste for, let's say, a year, 2, 3, what have you. Okay, and this is a very common scenario. I want to hear from you. Let me know if you've ever been through this before, where you didn't really have many issues, or your child was fine at the beginning, or maybe as soon as you had children, you decided not to use fluoride, and then a couple of years later, you have rampant cavities in your child, and you're like wondering and second guessing yourself and thinking, maybe I should have stuck with it. Maybe fluoride is the answer, right? Or how many times, for example, you went to the dentist and you declined the fluoride varnish, or other types of scenarios like that. So let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you made a decision to do something holistically, but then you didn't get the result that you want, so then you start questioning yourself, saying, maybe I should have stuck with traditional ways. Maybe I should have, stuck with the Colgate Total toothpaste instead of investing in this, $50 toothpaste, right? So what I wanted to do today is actually take the time to explain to you how fluoride actually works, so you can get an understanding of that. A lot of people don't understand how it works, so I wanted to show you the mechanism, the action. And I also want to talk about the pros and cons of it, okay, the bigger picture, and what alternatives there are, okay? So first thing first, before we talk about fluoride, let's talk about the dental structure itself, the tooth structure, okay? So the enamel of the tooth is made, like dental structure, is made from a molecule or a compound called hydroxyapatite, okay? And in terms of the sensitivity of enamel to acidity, right, we've been told that, and there's definitely validity to this, that enamel is sensitive to acidic conditions, okay? In the sense that, let's say you've eaten a meal, and especially if it's a high carbohydrate meals, and then you've got the plaque development, and then after a while, the plaque, some acidity comes as a result of the plaque, and it eats away at the enamel, okay? So unlike other holistic health or dental health, for example, if you look at the late Ramiel Nagel's book, Cure Tooth Decay, he completely disagrees with that, with the notion that tooth decay is a bacterial infection. And I, at one point, used to believe in that notion, but after years and years of research, delving into this deeply because of the issues that I had with my children, I've actually taken a different approach. So based on my own research and investigation, it's a combination, tooth decay issue is a combination of mineral and physical and physiological imbalances going on in the body and in the mouth, okay? So we know about if you don't know about the reversal of dentinal fluid, right, there's this fluid that's inside teeth that's constantly pumping, when it's in a good state, it's pumping the minerals and the ions into from the pulp of the tooth to the dentin and finally to the enamel, okay? And when you're in a state of good health, when you have balanced blood sugar levels, when you're in a state of regeneration and remineralization, this is the process that continues and happens on a day-to-day basis. Or most of the time you are in this regenerative and remineralization mode. But then if you have, physiological imbalances, mineral imbalances going on, emotional imbalances, by the way, are so, so important. And a lot of times they're often underrated and underestimated in terms of the effect that they have on the body. Then what ends up happening is that reversal of the fluid, right? Where the dentinal fluid is going from outside to the inside of the body, right? So think of it as your body leaching minerals from your teeth in order for it to go to a more important source, right? Because at the end of the day, the most important part of your body is your brain. And so teeth are not number one because you need your brain to survive, not your teeth technically, right? And so when you have these imbalances or these deficiencies going on, your body's going to leach from your teeth. So there's that explanation, right? But tooth decay is actually an infectious disease as well. And believe it or not, it is transmittable. Okay, you can actually get tooth decay as a result of having exposure from someone else's saliva, as an example, right? It's hard to believe, but it's true, and it's been scientifically proven. Now, having said that, okay, so not only are you dealing with the mineral imbalances inside the body, the reversal of the dental fluid, but you're also dealing with what's going on here in the microbiome, the salivary pH, the plaque, all that plays a role, okay? And so I wanted to share that with you because I know a lot of people think, oh, you know, tooth decay has nothing to do with bacteria. Actually, this is wrong, okay? There is a bacteria, there is an infection kind of going on, and this is why one of the amazing things about Imiswak, if you've been paying attention to the post in the group, if there's only one thing that you get out of this group, it would be that you should use Miswak, okay? And because of the amazing benefits, both on the the pathogenic bacteria that's implicated in tooth decay, the mechanical aspect of plaque removal, and the chemical aspect of plaque removal, all that. But again, that's not what I want to focus on today. Today I want to focus on fluoride. So going back to pH and going back to the structure of the enamel. So enamel is made from hydroxyapatite. And let's say you're in a state of demineralization, a lot of acidity is going on. Enamel starts breaking down at a pH of 5.5, okay? And for those of you that don't know what pH is basically, it goes from 1 to 14, with anything below 7 being acidic and anything above 7 being basic, right? The opposite of acid, and 7 being neutral. And so one way that you can really, hi Kaylee, great to have you, thanks for joining. One of the great things about maintaining proper pH within your mouth is when you do that, you have a much more positive impact on making good changes in order to promote, you know, strong, healthy enamel. And going back to this, so enamel sensitive, if you're having a pH, if there's pH of 5.5 in your mouth, your saliva is at 5.5, which is acidic, right? Again, 7 being neutral, 5.5 being acidic. At that point, the breakdown of enamel happens. Dentin, which is the secondary layer within your tooth, is even more sensitive in the sense that it is destroyed at just 6.2, right? So just 0.8 of a pH difference from 7 to 6.2, 0.8, that little difference is enough to have an impact on dentin, okay? So going back to what's going on within your mouth is in a constant state of mineralization and demineralization. This happens all the time, right? It's a normal physiological process. When you're in a good state of health, you're going to, your saliva, your body's going to be on the state of remineralization most of the time. So there's constant minerals going to your teeth, your saliva's alkaline, that sort of thing's happening. On the other hand, when you're not, then what happens is demineralization and you're leaching. And so you're looking at acidic saliva. And this is basically the what's going on within your mouth. So you have hydroxyapatite, which is what's enamel formed out of. And you have it constantly going into back and forth, you know, hydroxyapatite and then going to calcium and phosphate, right? I didn't want to write too many nomenclature forms, even though I'm from a chemical engineering background and I love this, but I didn't want to complicate it for you. So I just wrote the names here just so you know about what's the actual chemical reaction that's happening in your mouth, okay? So hydroxyapatite, calcium, and phosphate, that's what's going on. Now, basically, when you are in a state of demineralization, then the imbalances start happening. And what does that look like? Okay, it ends up where the phosphate ion, okay, and the calcium ion, okay, those ones are you know, the reaction is veering more towards here rather than towards the formation of the actual ion here. Hydroxyapatite, by the way, should have a D right here, hydroxyapatite. Okay. And so, like I said, when the pH drops below that critical level, when it goes below 5.5, okay, then you're looking at basically the dissolving of the tooth mineral, okay? And then when your saliva is alkalized again, you're going back to the initial hydroxyapatite. So what does this have to do with fluoride? Like, why is fluoride recommended? How does it work? What does it have to do with this complicated thing that you're showing? I'm not really trying to complicate, I'm trying to simplify it for you. So the hydroxyapatite ion is here, okay? So you have the calcium, I'll try to simplify it. Assalamualaikum, Amani, great to have you. You have the phosphate, and then you have the OH here, which is basically what? The hydroxy, right? Okay, the hydroxide. But what happens when you use fluoride? Why do they recommend fluoride? So when you're using fluoride, what ends up happening is instead of forming hydroxyapatite, you have here calcium and phosphate normally. But when you're using fluoride, what ends up happening is you have here calcium and what? Fluoride, okay? So what happens? Instead of forming hydroxyapatite, you form something else here called fluorapatite, okay? So notice the difference between here. This hydroxyl group over here, the OH2, is substituted with the fluoride ion, okay? That's what happens. So what does this mean? And how does this work and what happens? So the reason why it's recommended is when you are using fluoride and you have this equation, and instead of calcium and phosphate, now you have calcium and fluoride, you're forming fluorapatite instead of hydroxyapatite. The benefits of it is the fact that under acidic conditions, fluorapatite is less soluble than hydroxyapatite. Okay, and I'm going to say that again, because I know it can be a little bit daunting and overwhelming. So once again, you have hydroxyapatite, calcium phosphate. When you're using fluoride, the phosphate ion is replaced with the fluoride, and what ends up happening is you're forming fluorapatite. And fluorapatite compared to hydroxyapatite is not as soluble at acidic conditions. So you wonder, okay, well, what's the difference? Like, how much is it? What's the difference between fluorapatite and hydroxyapatite? So the difference is, unlike hydroxyapatite, which starts dissolving at a pH of 5.5, fluorapatite, on the other hand, it doesn't start having issues until pH 4.5. Okay, that's the difference. So, you know, in plain English, fluorapatite is more resistant to acidity than hydroxyapatite, the original tooth molecule. I'll say it again. Fluorapatite is less vulnerable to acidity than hydroxyapatite. That's the positive, okay? That's the main positive, okay? And so, because the fact that it's less soluble in acidic conditions, hence it's more resistant to future and subsequent demineralization when it's given that acid challenge, okay? And so this is the main reason or the main mechanism of how it works, okay? And what ends up happening is the fluoride enters the rods in the tooth to treat the enamel lesions on that superficial level, okay? And the thing is, you're like, oh my God, this sounds great. Now I understand why fluoride works. I should start using fluoride again. However, there is a drawback to it, okay? You're like, what's the drawback? So, as you know, for a lot of decades, you know, dental care has been committed to fluoride and the positive effect of it on hydroxyapatite, that it forms the fluorapatite, which is more resistant to acidity. But even though it's less soluble in acid conditions than hydroxyapatite, it is more brittle. So on a structural basis, hydroxyapatite definitely trumps fluorapatite. And this is why sometimes you notice people have brittle teeth when they're using fluoride products, because of this phenomenon, is the fact that fluoroapatite is inherently more brittle than hydroxyapatite. Okay? So you're like, okay, well then what should we do, and what are the harms of it, and how, and all that stuff. So that's what I want to talk about today. Now, going back to, I'm just going to remove this so I can use it again to explain other things for you. In terms of the harms of fluoride, I'm going to focus, there are so many studies, and I don't want it to take hours and hours on this slide, although if you guys show interest, I can delve into it more deeply. But I wanted to focus on two main ways that fluoride can affect the body in a negative way, okay? And I'll start off with a few quick facts. First of all, 97% of Western Europe, they've rejected water fluoridation. That's one thing I wanted to put out there. Secondly, many children, they exceed the daily fluoride intake from toothpaste alone, right? Just from toothpaste alone, they're exceeding it, right? That upper limit, okay? And the other thing is fluoride is not a nutrient. It's not like you need it in high amounts. It's found naturally in certain areas, but it's nowhere near the concentrations they're actually proposing for us to intake it, right? And 53 studies have linked fluoride with reduced IQ in children. So I just wanted to put that out there, okay? Now, in the 90s, there was a British scientist, Jennifer Luke, and what she discovered was that fluoride accumulates in very, very high levels in the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is basically the size of a grain of rice. That's how small it is. And it's located in between the two hemispheres of the brain, and it's responsible for a lot of different things, but what I want to focus on is the secretion of the hormone melatonin, okay, which is the body's like master antioxidant. And melatonin, it maintains the body's circadian rhythm, so think the sleep-wake cycle, and believe it or not, when it comes to women, in females, it regulates the onset of puberty, okay? Hey Lisa, great to have you. Welcome to have you on the live today. So it, like I said, it regulates the onset of puberty in females. And then, like I said, it's an amazing oxidant, so it protects the body from cell damage that's caused by free radicals. Now, what's interesting is when the pineal gland has a lot of calcification in it, it has the highest levels of fluoride in the body, okay? And when this calcifying tissue is exposed to a lot of blood volume, the pineal gland is like a major, major target for fluoride accumulation in humans. And when I say high concentration, like it is big. You're looking at like 21,000 parts per million of fluoride, okay? So it ends up being higher than what's found in bones or teeth, okay? Now, what's interesting is that the soft tissue of the pineal gland, it doesn't accumulate fluoride to the same extent as the calcified part, right? Because you have the non-calcified part and the calcified part, okay? But with those types of concentrations, those are known to actually inhibit enzymes. And as an example, one thing I want to focus on is fluoride and early puberty in girls. So what's been happening in the United States, as an example, is children are reaching the age of puberty at earlier stages than in the past. And this is concerning because there's a health consequence to this, right? And that includes things like increased rates for breast cancer. And there's evidence that shows that fluoride, with its effect on its pineal gland, could be actually part of the contributing cause to this trend. And so what they found in animal studies, okay, is like in rats, what they found is that the fluoride exposure decreased the amount of circulating melatonin, and then this leads to the accelerated sexual maturation in females. And then other studies have shown that in human populations drinking fluoridated water, that girls living in a fluoridated community they reached puberty 5 months earlier than girls that are living in an area that didn't have fluoridated water. Okay, so those are just two things I wanted to mention. So the impact on the pineal gland and melatonin, and then the impact on puberty onset with girls in particular. There's so much out there that it would take like hours and hours for me to delve into the depths of it, but I just wanted to put those out there to give you a bit of perspective. So, and I know a lot of people, like I said, moms come to me and they say, you know, like, I stopped using fluoride and now we have all these cavities. I regret doing that. Maybe I should have stuck with it. But just to let you know, and I'm sure you know this, but just to put things into perspective, there's a lot of people that use fluoride and they still have cavities, right? If fluoride was the answer, then why is it that people continue to have tooth decay? And it's not like it decreases with time. If you look at the general population, by the time a person reaches 50 years old or so, they've already like lost 12 teeth. That's like an average, right? So fluoride isn't necessarily the answer. And so what I wanted to share with you today is alternatives to fluoride. What else that you can do within your mouth to maintain good alkalization throughout the day. So one very simple thing that you can do to help your kid is crunchy veggies. And you're like, why are you saying crunchy veggies? So we know that part of the issue with tooth decay is it happens when, especially there's a lot of, you know, excess carbohydrate consumption. Once again, I want to clarify, do not demonize carbs. My kids now eat a lot more carbs than they used to be, and they had issues back when I severely restricted carbs. So restricting carbs is not the answer, okay? But at the same time, doesn't mean you just go all out on carbs, right? It's about what your body needs, right? And certain people need more, certain people need less, and this is part of the healing process, is getting to know the body more and finding out and learning what it is that the body needs. So for example, the carbs that a mom needs while she's pregnant is different than when she's breastfeeding, is different when she's not doing any, like she doesn't have those scenarios where she's just, you know, ovulating and having and menstruating on a regular basis. Now, going back to that, why am I saying crunchy veggies? Something very simple, it's not going to cost you extra money other than, you know, buying the veggies, is at the end of each meal, give your kid something simple, a piece of celery, a carrot, a raw cauliflower, a raw broccoli, something fibrous and crunchy. And what that's going to do is actually cleanse the mouth, right? It's going to cleanse the mouth, and you'll notice your mouth tends to feel really clean when you're eating crunchy veggies on their own, just plain, with nothing, you know. So I wouldn't put them with, I don't know, what's an example? Not that I demonize nut butters either. I'm actually perfectly fine with nut butters. But if you really want to get that cleansing effect, use the crunchy veggies on their own without any nut butter. And you'll notice that it really cleans off the plaque, in addition to alkalizing the saliva, okay? That's one thing you can do. And then the other thing after that is later on, within half an hour or so, use the miswak, because the miswak, remember I talked about the fact that it has mechanical and chemical reduction of plaque, in addition to alkalizing the saliva because of the different types of aromatic compounds found in it. So whenever you stimulate more saliva production, it's going to be more alkaline, which means you're bathing your teeth in this alkaline bath, which is great for them. It's just going to what? Remineralize them. Okay, those are two things. My third recommendation is you can take this a step further and do a baking soda spray, okay? So you just take, you know, a spray bottle, put like a 1/4 teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon baking soda, and you can just spray your kid's mouth with some baking soda post meals. This will instantly alkalize things going on. And if you haven't seen my my pH testing video, I highly recommend that you see it. I'll make sure to post it in the comments below here. It really important for you to know where you're at right now when it comes to pH, so you actually know where you want to head to, right? Most people don't know what their saliva is like, the properties of it, how acidic, how basic it is, whether it's neutral or not, and so you have no idea. But then we actually see it, not this, you know, I guess seeing is believing. Number 2, Kaylee, is miswak. Miswak is the basically the first toothbrush, which is made from the roots of the Salvadora persica tree, very popular in North Africa, the Middle East, and Western Asia. And it has really, really beneficial properties. It looks like this. So what you do is you, I have a video on it. I'll make sure to tag you in the video, or at least send it to you or post it in the group. So what you do is you remove the outer bark, and then you start chewing on the inner bark, which will expand the bristles. And when you do that, you start brushing with it, and it's really, really amazing because it's very flexible and it has amazing beneficial properties for the mouth, both from a chemical and mechanical standpoint when it comes to plaque removal. A lot of stuff. Yeah, you should check it out. So yeah, that's my second recommendation. The third one, like I said, is sometimes you're dealing with really, really acidic saliva, and the greatest damage happens in the very beginning. So if you can quickly alkalize that mouth, then you can make a dent when it comes to, well, you know, positive one, when it comes to alkalizing the saliva. So it means these teeth are spending less time in the acidic condition, because the longer the teeth are staying in this acid bath, then the more you're going to deal with what? Tooth decay issues. Okay, so we've talked about fluoride, how it works, why it's recommended, and the pros and cons of it. And I've given you 3 pretty easy ways to actually start alkalizing your saliva from now, without spending a fortune on expensive products. You know what I mean? And if you sign up for my Heal Your Mouth, Heal Your Body group coaching program, I go into much more depth about these topics and others on how to promote oral and overall body health through promoting the regeneration process. So that's it when it comes to fluoride. Now, do you guys have any questions? I have a few more minutes to answer them. I know that there were some other ones from before. I'm going to go through those right now. But while you guys are on the live right now, if there's anything you can think of, let me know. I know there was a question from, yeah, Sumaya was asking, I'd like to know if cure is possible for adults, or should I focus on prevention and protecting teeth against further decay infections? So when it comes to curing tooth decay, for those of you that don't know, maybe you've seen the popular article that's been circulating for us a little while. It's actually in the works right now to be able to regenerate teeth using going beyond the drill, fill, and bill cycle at the dentist. But at this point in time, it's going to be years before this is available to the public. And if you think about it, this is going to make it's going to radically change the paradigm of dentistry, right? Where instead of people going to get their teeth drilled and then filled, they're going to be going to their dentist to, get that substance in their teeth in order to promote regeneration, which is great. This is a step forward. But, hey, Jillian, great to have you. Based on my own research and intuition and looking into this, just from a basic standpoint, I'm confident that even when this is available, it's never going to be like the real thing, like you being able to have your own teeth. And if you think about it, it still means you're going to be spending money at the dentist, right? Again, I'm not anti-dentist, but what's going to happen is going to be the shift. Oh, I don't want to get my teeth drilled and filled. To, oh, I don't want to have to go to the dentist to pay for regeneration, which God knows how much it's going to cost. I'm sure it's going to be a lot more expensive than what fillings are. And so, what was I going to say? And so, going to the question specifically about curing tooth decay, when you have, when the tooth is demineralized simply at the enamel level, okay, so just that outer portion. Remember, I talked earlier and said your teeth are in constant state of mineralization and demineralization, right? So when that happens, and the demineralization is just in the enamel, you have a higher likelihood of being able to completely remineralize it. Not just halt it, but actually remineralize it. The thing is, once it gets into the dentin, it gets tricky. It gets tricky because, remember I mentioned earlier that dentin is even more vulnerable to acidity than enamel. Enamel is sensitive at 5.5 and less. Dentin is at 6.2 and less when it comes to pH. Okay, so what happens is there may be a cavity that's visible at the enamel level on the outside, but you don't know how deep it is on the inside, because once it reaches the dentin, it just spreads really quickly. So if you have this perfect storm for tooth decay going on, it might be, depending on where you're at, how your health is, what you're able to do, it might be really hard to achieve any sort of regeneration in there. Is it impossible? No. What's realistic? And I'll show you in Ramiel's book. Let me just get it from here. Okay. Just to show you what's possible. Okay. So how many of you, by the way, have read the Cure Tooth Decay group by Ramiel Nagel? If you have, let me know in the comments and how you found it. There's many great things in it, but I just don't, after years, because I read it when it first came out. And I was like, my kids aren't going to have tooth decay issues because we've radically changed our diet. We're following his thing, but they still have tooth decay. So I learned there's much more to it than diet alone. Not that diet isn't important, it certainly is, but it's not the only answer. So if you look at, he quoted Weston A. Price in his book, and you look over here on this, where is it? Sorry, it's opposite. On this page here, you have this massive cavity, right? This massive cavity, to the point that it's actually gotten into the pulp, right? The pulp chamber where the nerves are, okay? And what he ended up doing here is, you can see over here, he put a temporary filling, right? There's this white part here is the temporary filling. And using the principles he learned about nutrition, he was able to promote regeneration. So you can see that there's this new secondary level of dentin that's covering the pulp and protecting it, okay? So you can see this was really, really bad, but he was able to achieve this, okay? Now, please note that he did actually, clean up that tooth and put a filling in, right? It's not like he left it, because if he left it like this, there's this infection here going on, and it's only a matter of time before, this tooth is basically root canal worthy, for lack of better terms, okay? And so please know, again, that he did fill that tooth, but this is possible, right? So what your aim should be, or I think what you would aspire to achieve, is you want to give the best outcome that you can for your current teeth that are infected with tooth decay or gum disease, and then you also simultaneously want to work on a preventative basis. So that's why it's not about, just doing this sprint of running really fast and trying to heal that tooth decay, and then with time you going back to your old habits that are not serving you, right? That's why people that want to heal tooth decay, you're in it for the long run. Assalamu alaikum, Fariha, great to see you. You're in it for the long run, and you realize that whatever's going on in your mouth is a manifestation of something deeper, and you're eager. You're like, oh my God, let me know if this resonates with you. Like, oh my God, if this is what's happening with my teeth, like what is going on with my bones? What's going on with my joints? What else is going on the inside, right? And so for you, there's more to it than just, avoiding drill, fill, and bill, right? There's more to it than that, in the sense that you really see your mouth as the window and the door to your overall health, and you know that the more you work on your overall health, you're going to see these amazing results in your mouth. So to answer your question, Sumaya, is it possible? It certainly is possible. Again, depending on the extent, how long it's been going on for, what your history is like, what you've done so far, what you haven't done, what your weak points are, right? All that is taken into consideration. So, but at the same time, definitely focus on preventing and protecting, because, as the saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, okay? Going to address Fariha's question. Now, again, I'm not a dentist and I don't diagnose. This is my disclaimer, but I will give you a few hints, things to kind of think about. You said, let me just ask the question for those that haven't seen it. So Fariha said, I've started to experience pain on the molar. From what I can see, there's a cavity on just under the gum line. Should I, at this point, use fluoride or try things like oil pulling, non-fluoride toothpaste? I'm a newbie. Okay, I asked you to post a pic, and you've post a pic. So I can't really show you, but if you take a look at the picture, one thing you mentioned, you said that this tooth was basically a botched filling. You had it done when you were around 16, and 20 years later you developed severe pain. X-ray indicated that under the amalgam filling was badly decayed. The dentist removed the over 20-year-old amalgam and went as deep as possible and said he'd like to see if you could avoid a root canal. Then you said it's been fine for the last 3 to 4 years, but now along the gum line, I feel a sharp, intense pain, especially when anything sweet comes in contact. Even brushing the part causes pain. Okay, we were using fluoride toothpaste for years, and then with my 7-year-old repeatedly getting abscesses and subsequent extractions, you have been using fluoride-free toothpaste, have reverted back to fluoride, feeling confused on what to do, and I'm scared this is going to get worse. Okay, so be sure, I know you just joined us right now, but be sure to go back and watch the replay. I did go in extensive detail on how fluoride works, its pros and cons, and alternatives you can do other than fluoride. And when it comes to your tooth, now in general, again, I'm speaking general because I don't diagnose. In general, sensitivity to sweet means tooth decay. Okay. Now, the other thing I want you to be mindful of is if you take a look at the picture, you'll notice that there's this kind of long line right there. Okay. And so this, you want to kind of talk to your dentist and see, most likely this is considered a hairline crack. And I'm assuming, given that it was a really large amalgam filling, this means that most of the structure of the tooth has been compromised. And so when it comes to tooth decay that's so large that hairline cracks have developed in the tooth, a good dentist would know that it doesn't just need a regular filling, okay? Sometimes when teeth are really, really badly destroyed in their structure, there's something called an inlay or an onlay, where they actually take a mold of the tooth and they actually prefabricate the filling that's supposed to fit exactly on the tooth. And the benefit of that is, unlike regular white fillings, because I don't know, let me know if you guys have had this before, where you get a filling done and it's a white filling, but for a long time after, your tooth is sensitive, right? Because what happens with white fillings is they can expand and contract with temperature changes, whereas when you get something like an onlay done, it's just this firm structure that doesn't expand and contract, right? And those ones are often recommended in cases where there's hairline cracks, just to protect the integrity of the tooth. And then when it comes to that, like, I would definitely look at getting further support from your dentist, seeing how the extent of that tooth decay, because depending on how far along that decay is, right, then you would look at what way would be the best way to restore it. It's definitely not something you would want to wait on, because something like that, especially in that area, because if you look at the dental structure, you have whatever you see on the top is enamel, which is the strongest substance in the body, but below that you have cementum, and in that region, if there's tooth decay, it can rapidly, like, it's softer than enamel, and so it can easily spread. Like, a small cavity can become a huge cavity in no time. So definitely, you don't want to stay stuck in the state of fear. Not that you don't want to acknowledge it. Fear is a feeling, but you don't want it to let it consume you and hold you back from actually taking action. And the first step to action is actually getting knowledge and actually seeking the help of the dentist when it comes to something like this. So once again, you'll notice I'm not anti-dentist. I'm not an anti-dentist at all, but I'm about you taking back your dental autonomy and feeling more confident at the dentist and being able to ask the right questions and get what you want from the dentist. And I go into extensive detail about this in my program, how to manage dental appointments, how to actually find a good dentist, one that you can build rapport with, and even how to actually get what you want from a conventional dentist, because not every conventional dentist is a bad one. Sometimes you might end up finding that a conventional dentist is more open to your ideas than a holistic and biological dentist. And so a lot of moms, when they come to me, they think that the answer to their issues is finding, you know, that holistic dentist, but a lot of times it's actually within you, you know what I mean? It's what you do in between the dental visits that counts, and that can be a real game changer. And so something like this, you know what I mean? Doing something as simple as these things, which don't cost much, and again, I show a lot of other things within my program, which don't cost much. You can save money, avoid toxic products, and, you know, promote overall and oral wellness, you know what I mean? And why? It's because you're actually doing things throughout the day to manage what's going on in your mouth, as opposed to thinking that, okay, as long as I can afford a dentist, I can see one every 6 months and that should be fine. That's not the way, right? Because by the time you leave it to that stage, it's you know, you're going there to get it treated, right? And that's why even when it comes to seeing a holistic dentist, most of them still have the same paradigm of drill, fill, and build, mind you, with more, you know, biocompatible materials, but it's still that same thing. And I think what's going to happen, inshallah, and this is what I aspire to do with my work, is that we work along with dentists to help us find out our underlying imbalances and promote wellness, right? So instead of like avoiding, like look at the language, I want to avoid getting it drilled and filled. No, why don't we just change the language and say, I want to promote resilient teeth. How do I get resilient teeth, right? So notice how you wanting resilient teeth, this is a goal that you want to go to, whereas I want to avoid drill and fill is like you trying to what? Run away from something. So just that mind shift can have a really, really huge impact. So that's it for today, inshallah. If you have if you have any other questions, curious about something else, let me know what you found interesting about the fluoride topic today, what you didn't know, what you already knew, what you're curious about. I'd love to hear from you. And for those that have been curious about my program for a while, I am having the next cohort. I had my January cohort, now my next cohort in March is opening up. So if you're eager to make this year, 2020, the year that you actually get resilient teeth, the year that you actually promote oral and overall wellness in your child and actually achieve your dreams, because you know that these are holding you back from so much, apply for the clarity call and let's talk. Let's get the process started, okay? Thank you so much, and until next time, keep on smiling because it looks great on you. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you.